Advancing computer resources allow us to be able to develop these type of simulations today, which were not possible just a few years ago in the past, and we're still interested in actually taking real measurements in the field environments. But it's very costly to measure, and also when we do a field measurement study, we're very limited to the number of locations where we can actually examine the real environment. So being able to develop a numerical simulation of this real environment allows us to explore what happens and why air pollution that may be emitted from an accident or just a routine air pollution from buildings, how it would disperse and interact with the multi-building environments. One building can pollute another and vice versa. Winds in an urban environment, I think we all have some experiences in walking down streets in an urban environment, and we'll experience the winds in our face partway down the block, and we can either later in the block or we make a turn and the winds will be in the opposite direction. This is all due to the interaction of the oncoming winds with the buildings and being guided and influenced. And it's not possible to understand how air particles or pollutants would actually move in this environment without doing this type of numerical simulation. Having these kinds of simulations not only to support understanding pollutants from accidents, also urban planners could use this to better design the placement and the size and the scale of buildings to minimize adverse effects of winds, to help maximize how pollutants would vacate a particular source location, to minimize the impact on human health. Scientific visualization is critical to support my work. The numerical simulations I'm working on can produce thousands of gigabytes of information. And this is, while very useful information, very valuable information, it's not useful unless it can be visualized to develop understanding. Richard Hamming many years ago understood that the goal of computing is not numbers, it's insight. And without the scientific visualization, we have too many numbers to really develop that understanding. Scientific visualization has a role in all aspects of my work. First, I need to be able to visualize, perceive the environment I want to simulate. Then I do the simulations that produce lots of numbers that then aren't a useful product until I develop the scientific visualization. Because my simulations are very large, it requires advanced methods of scientific visualization to deal with very large files. My ultimate goal is to be able to interact in my 3 and 4D solutions.
So Alan came to us here at RENCI because he was interested in using some of the visualization spaces we have here to look at his data. For example, we have a large immersive dome and a very high resolution stereo display, and we want to be able to utilize these spaces to perform interactive visualizations. This can be a problem for Alan's data, or a challenge with Alan's data, because it's very large data sets, and it's in many time steps. So far at RENCI, what we've done is we've taken his data set and kind of chopped it into smaller pieces to come up with kind of proof of concepts of the types of visualizations that we want to be able to do in these spaces. For example, we want to be able to perform an interactive walkthrough of the streets of downtown Manhattan within the immersive dome, in which you'll be able to look to your left, look to your right, look over your head, and see his data, both static data or data sets moving over time, and be able to interact with this data in this type of walkthrough mode. We also want to be able to look at the data in our teleimmersion room, which has 4 times HD resolution and stereo. And to be able to render to these different spaces is even more expensive than just on a typical PC, because we need to render for the scene 4 times for the dome or 8 times for teleimmersion. So in the future, we really want to be able to hook into some of the large computing resources at RENCI to be able to perform these renderings of these massive data sets interactively.
This example visualization shows a sample of the solution of the wind pattern that was simulated. We're using this to examine the solution to see if it's realistic and to understand the complexities of wind patterns in urban environments. Blue being lower velocity and red being higher velocity, particularly streaming above the street canyon.